Us three on the phone, nigga. And it ain't nothing to discuss. It was no disrespect. It was no raised voices. Rose just wanted to plant that seed.
On January 10th, 2026, Pooh Shiesty walked into a Dallas recording studio, pressed an AK-style pistol against his own label boss's head, and forced him to sign contract termination papers at gunpoint. Then he stripped the man of his wedding ring, his watch, his earrings, and his cash. That label boss turned out to be Gucci Mane, the same person who discovered him, the same person who called him the MVP, the same person who compared him to Kobe Bryant on wax. But here's where this story takes a turn nobody saw coming. Less than 3 months later, federal agents kicked down Shiesty's door because the feds knew everything. They knew every detail, every person involved, every piece of jewelry that got taken. And when that criminal complaint got unsealed, hip-hop witnessed something that shook the entire culture to its core. Gucci Mane had identified every single suspect by name, by Instagram handle, by the exact clothes they wore during the offense. The streets had one word for that, and the word was snitching. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what went down in that Dallas studio, why Pooh Shiesty allegedly turned on the man who made him, what the federal paperwork actually reveals about Gucci Mane's statements, and why this case has torn hip-hop completely apart. This story goes way deeper than a robbery because this is about loyalty, betrayal, and $25 million that Shiesty allegedly never touched. Let me break it all down for you. To understand how we arrived at this moment, you need to understand where Pooh Shiesty came from. And I'm not talking about his Wikipedia page. I'm talking about the real story that most people never hear. Lontrell Donnell Williams Jr. entered the world on November 8, 1999, in the Cane Creek apartments of South Memphis, Tennessee. If you know anything about Memphis, you already know Cane Creek. And this wasn't the suburbs or a comfortable upbringing. This was pure survival. What separated Shiesty from everyone else around him was that music ran through his bloodline. His father, Lontrell Williams Sr., performed under the rap name Mob Boss and operated his own label called Mob Ties Records, which meant by the time Shiesty turned 8 years old, he was already spending time in recording studios. Think about that for a second. While most kids his age were playing video games, this kid was absorbing the music business from the inside out. Here's something most people don't realize about the name Pooh Shiesty. It didn't just appear out of nowhere. His older brother Terrence Henderson, who performed as P, created that name by combining his childhood nickname, Mr. Pooh, with the slang term, Shiesty. That same brother would later die of brain cancer on February 28th, 2021, at just 27 years old. And you should keep that detail in mind as this story unfolds. Shiesty built his buzz through pure grinding with no major label backing and no industry connections. It was just him and his Chopper Gang collective putting in work until tracks like Hell Night in 2019 and Shiesty Summer that same year started catching attention in the streets. The energy coming off those songs was undeniable. The authenticity was obvious to anyone paying attention. And someone very important noticed what was happening. In April 2020, Gucci Mane slid into Pooh Shiesty's Instagram DMs. And you need to let that sink in for a moment. Gucci Mane, the trap god himself, the man who launched countless Atlanta rap careers, the same person who put Waka Flocka, Young Thug, and Migos on the map, was now personally reaching out to a 20-year-old kid from Memphis. Shiesty described the conversation later by saying Gucci told him he'd been listening to his stuff and thought he was hard, then asked if he was signed to anybody. Shiesty told him he was independent, sent over his phone number, and after they FaceTimed, everything took off from there. Just like that, Pooh Shiesty signed to 1017 Records with distribution through Atlantic, and Gucci didn't just sign him. Gucci championed him publicly. On the track like 34 and 8, Gucci rapped that Shiesty was his Kobe Bryant and that there was no way he'd ever trade the man. Consider what that statement meant coming from Gucci Mane. A legend in trap music was comparing this young kid to Kobe Bryant, calling him untouchable, telling the entire world that this was his guy. For a while, everything pointed toward a legendary partnership. On February 5th, 2021, Shiesty dropped his debut mixtape Shiesty Season, and the results were historic by any measure. The project debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, hit number 1 on top rap albums, reached number 1 on Spotify, and to this day that tape has accumulated over 1.5 billion streams. But here's the track that changed everything for him. Back in Blood, featuring Lil Durk, peaked at number 13 on the Hot 100, and currently holds an 8 times platinum certification from the RIAA with over 400 million views on YouTube alone. Shiesty made the 2021 XXL freshman class, performed on The Tonight Show, received BET Award nominations and Billboard Music Award nominations, and stores across America started posting signs that read, "No Shiesty masks allowed," because his signature black balaclava had become a nationwide fashion phenomenon. At 21 years old, Pooh Shiesty stood as one of the biggest new names in hip-hop, and then everything came crashing down around him. What most people don't realize is that Shiesty's legal troubles began almost immediately after he signed to 1017, and we're talking months here, not years. Let me walk you through the 3 incidents that would define his federal case. The first incident occurred on July 7, 2020, at a Memphis gas station when a firearm discharged from a car Shiesty occupied. That alone might seem minor on its own, but the feds were quietly building a pattern. The second incident is where the situation turned serious. October 9th, 2020, Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, at a place called the Landon Hotel. Here's how the whole thing went down. Shiesty, his road manager Bobby Brown, and an associate named Jaden DeRosa pulled up in a rented lime green McLaren to meet 2 guys named Jeffrey Sarna and Brandon Cooper with a simple plan to purchase some marijuana, some codeine, and a pair of Air Jordan 4 sneakers. But here's where everything went sideways. The transaction turned violent when Shiesty's crew allegedly pulled firearms, assaulted both sellers, and shot both of them. Brandon Cooper caught a bullet to the buttocks while Jeffrey Sarna took one in the hip, and the weapon reportedly used was a Draco subcompact machine gun. Now check this detail out. As they fled the scene in that lime green McLaren, a Louis Vuitton bag tumbled out of the car containing $40,912 in cash that police recovered at the scene. Here's the part that would come back to haunt Shiesty. The serial numbers on those bills matched serial numbers on $100 bills that Pooh Shiesty had posted on his own Instagram. Think about that situation for a second. He literally posted evidence on social media that prosecutors would later use against him in federal court. One more detail about this incident that you can't make up. It happened directly across the street from the Bay Harbor Islands police station. The third incident took place on May 30th, 2021, Memorial Day weekend, at the King of Diamonds strip club in Miami-Dade. He had just finished performing, and security was escorting him out when someone knocked money from his pocket. His response was to pull a gun and fire, and the bullet struck a security guard in the ankle. On June 9th, 2021, federal agents arrested Pooh Shiesty, and 20 days later, on June 29th, a federal indictment came down from the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida on 4 counts, with a potential maximum sentence of life in prison. Here's the part that most people miss about this case. The most serious charge, discharging a firearm during a crime of violence, carried a mandatory minimum of 10 years. Not a possible sentence, but a mandatory minimum that the judge couldn't go below even if they wanted to. Shiesty's legal team found an angle when they discovered that one of the victims, Brandon Cooper, had caught an indictment in a separate bank fraud scheme, and that discovery destroyed his credibility as a potential witness. On January 4th, 2022, Pooh Shiesty made a decision to plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to possess a firearm in furtherance of violent and drug trafficking crimes, which meant 3 counts got dropped. On April 20th, 2022, U.S. District Judge Kevin Michael Moore handed down a sentence of 63 months, which works out to 5 years and 3 months, plus 3 years of supervised release. The prosecution had requested 97 months, so the judge gave him 34 months less than what they asked for. Here's an interesting detail buried in the court documents. At the time of sentencing, Pooh Shiesty's net worth sat at $3,449,446. Authorities transferred him to USP Canaan in Waymart, Pennsylvania. And here's where the timeline becomes critical. He walked out early on October 6th, 2025, after serving approximately 3.5 years because good behavior credits and likely the First Step Act got him released ahead of schedule. Authorities placed him in a residential re-entry management facility in Dallas with his supervised release scheduled to end on April 11th, 2026. Remember that date, April 11th, 2026, because what happened next would change everything. Now we're getting to the part that has the entire hip-hop community split down the middle. And that's the question of what actually happened inside that Dallas studio. Let me set the scene using what we know from federal court documents. On January 10, 2026, Pooh Shiesty remained on home confinement and still wore an ankle monitor with his supervised release scheduled to end in just 3 months. He stood so close to complete freedom that he could taste it. But according to federal prosecutors, Shiesty had different plans. He arranged what appeared to be a legitimate business meeting at a recording studio on Dallas Parkway, and 3 victims flew in expecting contract negotiations. According to the federal complaint, one of those victims appears as RD in the documents, identified as the owner of 1017 records. RD are the initials of Radrick Davis, which is Gucci Mane's government name. The other 2 victims appear only as MM and BP in the court paperwork. Now here's how prosecutors claim everything went down. At approximately 3:43 p.m., Shiesty and 8 co-conspirators allegedly carried out what the Department of Justice called a coordinated armed takeover. The feds claim Shiesty escorted Gucci Mane into a recording room and produced contract termination paperwork. And this wasn't random paperwork either. According to the complaint, Shiesty's father, Lontrell Williams Sr., had printed those documents hours earlier at a nearby Staples. When Gucci allegedly refused to sign and an argument erupted, Shiesty reportedly instructed co-defendant Big 30, the Memphis rapper whose real name is Rodney Wright Jr., to retrieve a bag from somewhere. Big 30 returned carrying a bag, and according to prosecutors, Shiesty pulled an AK-style pistol from inside it. At gunpoint, he allegedly forced Gucci Mane to sign a release from his 1-7 Records contract, but the situation didn't end there. The complaint states that Big 30 recorded Gucci verbally confirming the release on camera before he allegedly destroyed his phone. Meanwhile, Shiesty allegedly stripped Gucci of his wedding ring, watch, earrings, and cash. And while all of this unfolded in that recording room, the other co-conspirators were allegedly robbing the 2 additional victims of their Rolex watches, jewelry, and cash. One victim, identified as M, allegedly got choked until he nearly lost consciousness, while Big 30 allegedly barricaded the studio door so nobody could escape. Here's where the evidence against them becomes overwhelming. The feds cite ankle monitor data that places Shiesty at the exact location of that studio at the exact time of the robbery. Cell phone records and license plate readers track coordinated travel from Memphis to Dallas by multiple defendants. And rental car records revealed that Lontrell Williams Sr., Shiesty's father, rented one of the vehicles they used. Surveillance footage exists from the scene along with fingerprints recovered from red plastic cups. But here's the detail that prosecutors seem to love the most. Within hours of the robbery, multiple defendants allegedly posted on social media displaying the stolen jewelry and cash. Think about that for a second. They allegedly committed a federal kidnapping and then posted the evidence on Instagram. On April 1st and 2nd, 2026, authorities charged 9 defendants with federal kidnapping and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. The list includes Lontrell Williams Jr., that's Pooh Shiesty, described as the ringleader, then Lontrell Williams, his father, then Rodney Wright Jr., that's Big 30, and then Kadarius Waters, Terrence Rogers, Demarion Gibson, DeMarcus Glover, Corday Johnson, and Darian McDaniel. Every single defendant faces up to life imprisonment. On April 8, 2026, U.S. Magistrate Judge Renee Harris Tolliver denied Shiesty's bail request in Dallas, and her exact words were that she found the weight of the evidence against him to be strong. Here's the devastating part that makes this even worse. Remember that date I told you to keep in mind, April 11, 2026? That date marked when Pooh Shiesty's supervised release was supposed to end, the day he would have been completely free from the federal system. Authorities arrested him just days before that date. U.S. Attorney Ryan Raybould made the government's position crystal clear when he stated that anyone contemplating using violence and intimidation as a business practice should know it will be vigorously investigated and prosecuted in the Northern District of Texas. But as wild as these allegations sound, that's not what has hip-hop buzzing. What has the culture divided is something else entirely, and it concerns what Gucci Mane allegedly told the police. Now let's address the elephant standing in the middle of this room because everyone wants to know the same thing. Did Gucci Mane actually snitch? This situation gets complicated, so I need you to understand exactly what the paperwork states, not what social media is claiming, and not what the blogs are running with, but what the actual federal documents reveal. On April 2nd, 2026, authorities unsealed the federal criminal complaint, and when people read through the identification sections, it sent shockwaves rippling through hip-hop. The document shows that victim RD, matching Gucci Mane's initials and described as the owner of 1017 records, identified Pooh Shiesty personally by his real name and by his stage name. The complaint also shows that RD identified Big 30 through his Instagram handle at CO Big 30. One direct quote from the complaint describes how RD stated that Williams Jr. wore a black Nike brand Shiesty mask, a black hooded shirt, and black pants during the offense. Now let me be very clear about what this represents and what it doesn't represent. What the complaint describes are victim statements provided to local Dallas police at the scene of an alleged violent crime. And this is not a proactive cooperation agreement with federal prosecutors. In legal terms, reporting a crime as a victim operates in a completely different category from what hip-hop culture defines as snitching, which typically means informing on associates or providing testimony to build cases against people. But here's where the situation gets interesting. Defense attorney Bradford Cohen, who represents Shiesty, framed it differently during the April 8th court appearance when he stated that what the government has amounts to allegedly 5 individuals, with one of them being a very well-known individual who is allegedly cooperating with the government and making these allegations against his client. So from where the defense stands, Gucci Mane is cooperating. But then something unexpected happened. On April 7th, Big 30's attorney Arthur Horn dropped a bombshell in federal court when he claimed that Gucci Mane has made it clear he will no longer act as a witness or cooperate with federal prosecutors. According to Horn, the FBI reportedly cannot reach Gucci for follow-up interviews. Then on April 8th at Shiesty's detention hearing, FBI Special Agent Pamela Hansen admitted something significant. The FBI has not directly interviewed Gucci Mane or any of the other victims, which means the entire case relies on statements given to Dallas police that night. Let me break this down so it's crystal clear. The feds are building their case on initial statements that victims gave to local police on January 10th, and Gucci's name appears in those statements to identify suspects. But the FBI has not managed to secure follow-up interviews, and the defense claims Gucci is no longer cooperating with authorities. The defense has jumped on additional weaknesses in this case. The FBI doesn't possess the recording contract that allegedly got signed at gunpoint. No video exists showing the alleged forced signing. Authorities haven't recovered the firearms or most of the stolen jewelry. And here's a big one. The feds waited 3 months before making any arrests. Bradford Cohen argued in court that the FBI doesn't take 3 months to arrest someone if they believe everything that got said on the night it occurred. So what has Gucci Mane himself stated about any of this? Nothing. Complete and total silence. He hasn't posted anything, hasn't tweeted anything, hasn't given any interview addressing the incident or the snitching allegations of Pooh Shiesty in any capacity. His publicists haven't responded to media requests either. But here's the ironic twist in all of this. An old Instagram live clip resurfaced, showing Gucci declaring that he ain't gonna tell nobody, not even the police, and that he doesn't believe in any of that, because the only thing he believes in is don't tell the police. That clip is old and has nothing to do with the current case, but it went viral anyway as commentary on the situation. For some context here, Gucci Mane served his own federal time, amounting to 39 months from 2014 to 2016 for felony firearm possession. And no public evidence exists showing that he cooperated against others in that case since he pleaded to his own conduct. Here's a detail that speaks to the financial side of everything. Big 30's attorney Arthur Horn told TMZ that Gucci Mane allegedly made roughly $25 million from Pooh Shiesty's music while she sat incarcerated. $25 million. I have to be clear that this is a defense claim and not a verified figure, but it points toward the alleged financial motivation driving the contract dispute. And remember, Gucci released all 1017 artists in October 2024 except for Shiesty and Fujiano, meaning he held on to his 2 most valuable contracts. So the question becomes whether this counts as snitching or whether it counts as a crime victim identifying his attackers. The answer to that question depends entirely on which framework you apply, whether that's legal or street. When that complaint dropped publicly, the hip-hop world fractured along clear lines, and the reactions reveal exactly where different artists stand. 50 Cent jumped in as one of the first to pile on when he posted a now-deleted Instagram photo with a caption reading, "Damn it, man, I thought you was smoking on Pookie Lock." Stay tuned for the next episode of Only in Atlanta. If you know your hip-hop history, that reference lands as devastating. Pookie Lock was a Jeezy affiliate that Gucci killed in self-defense back in 2005. so 50 was essentially declaring that Gucci's street credibility was all fake. Rick Ross offered the most measured perspective from a hotel in Prague when he stated that Guwap most definitely didn't deserve that and that he doesn't want to see this outcome for the little homie Pooh Shiesty. But in business, you have to negotiate because you can't muscle your way out of situations.
I don't like it for either side. You know what I'm talking about? Guwap most definitely didn't deserve that, and I don't want to see this for the little homie Pooh Shiesty, but this is when niggas gotta be educated and understand. In business, you gotta negotiate, my nigga. You gotta negotiate. If you were signed for 100K and now you got 10 M's on the table, it's time to negotiate. This how we do this. Boom, 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 boom. Everybody win. Let's go. That's how I gotta go, my nigga.
That perspective carries some interesting weight because Ross isn't fully defending either side. He's acknowledging that what allegedly happened to Gucci was wrong while also implying that business disputes deserve different handling. The most vocal defender of Pooh Shiesty turned out to be Asian Doll. Asian Doll came up as a former 1017 artist, and she unleashed a series of posts attacking Gucci's business practices directly. She wrote that Gucci held her and she had to fight to get out of her deal, but Pooh couldn't fight because he sat in jail, while Gucci held on because he could. And the minute that boy got free, he took matters into his own hands. She retweeted a fan who called her the only person who survived Gucci Mane's label. NLE Chopper, another Memphis rapper, expressed disappointment when he wrote that he ain't gonna lie, but Shiesty messed him up with this one. Waka Flocka Flame carries his own complicated history with Gucci from when they were close collaborators before their very public falling out. But even he distanced himself from celebrating this situation by stating that people are out of their minds if they think he's going to celebrate WAP's situation. DJ Academics provided the most extensive media analysis by breaking down the complaint on a live stream where he noted that it appears all of these guys cooperated and identified these people as being present during the offense. And Gucci's doing the identification just like Academics himself would do.
It says the white cameraman and Roderick Davis described Shiesty as wearing. Now maybe this, which I don't know what's snitching or what's not. If they're like, nah, the nigga was just wearing a Shiesty, and then the police pinned that on Shiesty, did Gucci snitch? Or maybe Gucci just said, nah, Shiesty was wearing a Shiesty.
6ix9ine predictably used the moment to attack Gucci by making allegations about Gucci's wife, Keishia Cole. But I'm not going to repeat those claims because they're unverified gossip, though he was definitely stirring the pot. Finesse 2 times floated an alternative theory by suggesting that an off-duty police officer working as Gucci's security guard may have been the real source of information rather than Gucci himself.
That man 50-something years old. He got a wife and kids and family and all that old shit. You can't really tell him what to do. You got some niggas who still live by the street code. I respect it. I don't respect niggas who get in the streets, do shit, and then tell to get out of it. I don't respect it. No. I feel like if you did that shit, nigga, you need to stand on it. In any situation. That's what he said. I'm a retired police officer.
No evidence supports this theory, but it shows how people are searching for alternative explanations. One viral moment captured the cultural mood perfectly when No Jumper shared a video showing an Atlanta inmate throwing Gucci Mane's autobiography episodes, The Diary of a Recovering Madman, off a prison railing, just tossing it away as a symbolic rejection of Gucci's credibility in the streets. Meanwhile, 21 Savage made a quieter statement when he appeared on Instagram Live vibing to Shiesty's comeback single FDO, and people widely interpreted that as implicit support for Shiesty. The Joe Budden podcast dedicated a lengthy segment wrestling with the tension between street codes and victim rights. And Budden noted about Shiesty's lyrics that the warning signs were right there in front of everybody the whole time. That observation holds weight because FDO stands for a phrase about the ops, and the song reached #1 on Billboard's Hot R&B Hip Hop chart, while hitting number 12 on the Hot 100. Shiesty had just achieved his biggest career peak, and now he's staring down life in prison. But this situation raised a bigger question about 1017 Records as a whole. This case has intensified something that fans have discussed for years. They call it the 1017 curse. Let me run through the label's recent history because when you see everything together, it becomes haunting. Big Scar died from a drug overdose in December 2022 at just 22 years old. Enchanting died in 2024 from drug-related causes. Fujiano remains incarcerated with an expected release in November 2026. Hot Boy West caught a 15-year sentence for assault. Hoodrich Pablo Juan caught 15 years in a separate case. And now Pooh Shiesty, who served time from 2021 to 2025 before getting rearrested in April 2026 and now faces life. Think about what all of this means for the label itself. In October 2024, Gucci dropped every artist except Shiesty and Fujiano because those represented his two most valuable contracts, the two artists who actually generated significant revenue. The situation right now shows Fujiano locked up until late 2026, while Shiesty might never come home at all. 1017 Records effectively operates with 0 active artists. Asian Doll's comment about being the only person who survived Gucci Mane's label hits different when you see this pattern laid out clearly. I'm not saying Gucci bears responsibility for the individual choices these artists made, because that wouldn't be fair. But the pattern is undeniable, and it speaks to something larger about how the music industry and the streets intersect in ways that often end in tragedy. As of right now, here's where everything stands. Pooh Shiesty sits in federal custody in Dallas with no bond and no trial date announced while facing life in prison for federal kidnapping. In the federal system, parole doesn't exist, so if you get life, you serve life. His father, Lontrell Williamson, awaits a possible bond revocation hearing. Big 30 initially received a $100,000 bond, but the government immediately stayed it, meaning he's fighting to get released. The defense strategy is becoming clear at this point. They're going to try undermining victim credibility while highlighting that the FBI never directly interviewed any of the victims. They're going to point out all the evidence the feds don't possess, including the contract, the video of the signing, the firearms, and most of the stolen jewelry. The Gucci Mane snitching narrative exists in a gray zone. The federal complaint verifiably shows that Gucci identified suspects to Dallas police as a crime victim, but no formal cooperation agreement exists. The FBI hasn't interviewed him, and his attorney through Big 30's lawyer signaled that he won't continue cooperating with authorities. Whether providing a victim statement after getting kidnapped at gunpoint counts as snitching depends entirely on which cultural framework you apply. But here's the deeper story underneath all of this. A young artist from the Cane Creek apartments of South Memphis allegedly generated millions for his label while sitting in a federal prison cell. Then he came home only to find himself still locked into a contract he didn't want. That frustration, channeled through violence rather than negotiation, may cost him the rest of his life. Former federal prosecutor Richard Roper assessed the government's case by stating that, from the complaint, it looks like the government has built a strong case because after they robbed these victim rappers and stole their jewelry and other property and forced one of the rappers to sign a release of a contract, they then posted on social media the fruits of their theft. Social media evidence, the same exact thing that connected Shiesty to the Florida case back in 2020. Some people never learn from their mistakes. The question now extends beyond whether Pooh Shiesty will beat this case. It's about what this situation reveals about the music industry, about artist contracts, about loyalty and betrayal, and about what happens when business disputes get handled in the streets instead of the courtroom. The question of whether Shiesty acted wrong for allegedly doing what he did, or whether he was a young artist pushed to the edge by an industry that failed to protect him, remains open. The question of whether Gucci Mane snitched by identifying his attackers, or whether he simply exercised his legal rights as a victim, remains open too. Those are the questions hip-hop will debate for a very long time, and the answers might not come until this case goes to trial. If you want to understand more about how record label contracts trap artists, check out the video on screen right now because it explains everything the industry doesn't want you to know about.